Hi folks, it's your Taboo Scout here. We've got some UK Real Truth news for you, but I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of a taboo topic, drugs and drug dealing. We probably all know somebody who's been affected by that, and that's not what we're going to talk about right now. What I'm going to suggest, because of an announcement made today by the UK government, is that, at least in the UK, but I think that applies to a lot of other countries, but I'm not going to name names, probably most of them. Drugs, drug dealing, drug addicts are an economy. I think governments think they need now. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay, so let's start like this. An announcement made in the last few days by the UK government is that they are ramping up the amount of money they're going to invest in the fight against drugs, drug dealing, drug addiction to 148 million per annum. There's a lot of money when you consider that all the police really need to do to combat drug dealing is actually get out there and be a presence on the street. Now, I don't know where you live, but in the UK, it's rare now that you see a police car in a high crime area. You never see a police patrol on foot in a high crime area anymore, at least not in the south. Sorry for you guys up in the north that things may be different. And the thing is, the police have only really just started to touch the tip of the iceberg in getting modern with the times, because by announcing this 148 million pound injection of drugs to fight drugs, basically what they're admitting is that they're not winning, they're not getting anywhere. Okay, because they've been so out of date for so long that the modern infrastructure of drug dealing, gang hierarchy, and drug dealing methods have completely changed. And we're going to take a look at that. And again, going back to, it's an economy for the British government. Sure, a lot of crime is fueled by drug addiction. And if you take that away, there's not really much that the police can do. Like I said, a lot of crime is drug fueled. Okay, people need money for drugs, so they go to desperate extremes. Otherwise, in the UK, the police are a spent force. They only ever turn up after a crime. They don't prevent crime because they're not out on the street. So let's look at why they are out of date. And let's also put into perspective that you don't need £148 million boost a year to put some people on the street, to have a presence. Yeah, there's no special equipment that will eradicate drug dealing. Okay, it basically comes down to intelligence. Here's the problem with intelligence, at least with UK police forces, is that nobody likes the police in the UK. And that's going to get me into some trouble. But it's sort of true. Yeah, like I said, they turn up after the crime. They make deals with people who are trying to change their lives and think, okay, maybe the police will help me. And they'll turn around and they'll stab them straight in the back. And they don't make any friends. Their intelligence really only gets a break when they get a lucky break. And like I said, times have changed. Let's look at a few images and see why times have changed. But at the end of the day, I'm saying it's an economy and that they need it, as crap as it sounds. Here we go. So from around the mid-80s, this is what the government told you a drug dealer was. Some subversive looking guy trying to shove a bag of white powder in your face. So you either had the option of meeting this guy, apparently, or you would go to a rundown housing area and there would be a place where you could get your drugs. Cuckooing was a thing, and what that means is that dealers would move into an addict's place and pay them drugs to deal from their house. That became too obvious. Then we had the county lines phenomena. What county lines were other drug gangs going into other territories, doing their business, selling their product, and then going back to their own territories. Now, the police say they squashed this, but county lines has been going on for over 20 years, and the reason it's not really going on anymore is conflict between rival gangs, not really the police stopping it. These days, what you're more likely to see as a drug dealer is a young, innocent-looking kid on a scooter, turning up, doing a deal quickly, and then zipping off. Now, the thing is, he's not just on his own. Okay, there's a whole infrastructure. There'll be a gang. One will hold the drugs. One will supply the runner with the order. Another one will take it and hide it. And the police are sort of quite loath to stop these because most of them are young children and they don't really have any powers. Okay, now a lot of countries have tried legalizing cannabis. They've taken an economy from the dealers and they've used it themselves, quite ashamedly or unashamedly. Now the UK government, they don't do things that way. Okay, they like to look like the good guys all the time. They would never allow stuff like this. So what they've done is they've established an organisation to deal with all of this money, because it's a lot of money, and there's no point in not having it back in circulation. Okay, because even though it's a little, it will make a lot. So they have this organisation, HM Customs and Excise, and they will take all illicit and unpaid tax, drugs, drink, anything you want, and they'll store it. But what's the point in them just storing it or destroying it when subversively, it's my contention that they can put it back into circulation and make money from it? Why would they have these warehouses otherwise if apparently all they do is incinerate all these illegal things? That's a complete lie. Okay, so really the days of you meeting a guy like this down the road who's going to take your money so he can go and buy drugs maybe used to happen, but it's dead. It doesn't happen anymore. And I'll tell you why it doesn't happen. Because the drug gangs, the bosses, they don't want that going on in their territory. Right? They want this going on, money. And they just will not allow it. The days of your typical drug pusher are over. And people never really used to push drugs. There was always the bogeyman the government said that would approach your children with a baseball bat and say, hey, if you don't buy my product, I'll smash your face in. That's just scare tactics, because realistically, in today's world, there is a whole planet of people that need one thing or another. Yeah, and they'll go behind their locked doors and they'll do their little vices. These will be people you walk past in the street and you wouldn't have an inkling. Let's talk about another false economy in drugs, and that's methadone clinics and recovery clinics. Now, they will put a person on methadone, which is 10 times more traumatic to withdraw from heroin, and they will keep these people on their books for years, reducing them slowly. Reason being is that they're all private agencies, and they all get funded from local councils. There, in turn, local councils can then approach governments and say, well, we're dealing with this, but we need budget. And all of the so-called key workers in these agencies, none of them are medically trained. Sure, there may be a doctor on the premises to prescribe the doses, but as far as the rest of the workers go, they're taking all their information from books, from government guidelines. Most of them have no idea what drugs feel like or do, and They make their clients jump through hoops. You must attend this day. You must attend regularly that day. If you don't do this, we will cut this much of your medication. And the life of a drug addict is hard. They'll often slip up, and they'll find that the only thing they can do when their medication gets cut is to go back on drugs. So it's a turnaround economy, okay? And there's no way, when you look at the money involved, that governments who are screaming out for money, especially the UK government, are going to waste that, okay, when they can turn it around and make more from it. I know what I said is outrageous, but it's the truth. So, folks, I know what I've said is a little bit touchy to some of you, but with that last image, the vault, why wouldn't they? Yeah, why wouldn't they use that? When you consider that 30 million per annum is seized in drugs, not in drug money, in drugs, of Class A drugs per year in the UK. That's what they tell us, £30 million worth. Okay. Money-wise, they're saying it's £1 million worth. I believe it's more. But who, in their right mind, when every government on this planet is screaming for money, and has been for years, it's all a game. It's been a game since the days banks first started. Who would throw away that money? I'm sorry. Yeah. Why do they have these warehouses to store these drugs, money, illicit stuff, when they can just put it back into circulation and work it? As far as I'm concerned, I'm calling the government out, and I'm calling them drug dealers. I'm calling the police force, the ones that are letting the shotters, the young kids, get away with it to an extent. And I know I'm going to upset a lot of people, but you need to learn to read between the lines, okay? Because when drugs are seized, they go to a police station, they're held there for evidence, for court, and then where do they go after court? They go straight back to customs and excise. They're not thrown into an incinerator. Sure, they tell you they are. All they're burning is their old socks. Anyway, guys, read between the lines, yeah, and Scout 12. See you later.